We've been following all of the different possible paths forward for treating the virus. We've talked about antivirals. We've talked about antibody treatments. We've talked about the path to a vaccine. Every time that this comes up, I am careful to say these are things that are being considered in early testing. We need to know more. We don't have much data yet. I now have for you today, and there is a degree to which we are sort of on the vanguard here of the treatment of this. We now have promising results from not one but two of these studies, and we're also learning a lot more about possible predispositions to getting a more serious case of the virus. We'll talk about that as well, based on blood type, some early data about that. So let's jump right in. First of all is Avigan. Okay, I told you about Avigan earlier this week. Avigan's a Japanese antiviral. It was developed by a subsidiary of Fujifilm, if you can believe that, back in 2014. The idea was the Japanese government wanted to have something to stockpile against a serious flu epidemic at some point in the future. They said this is as good a time as any to test it on coronavirus. And for a while, there was mere speculation that Avigan may be effective. We now have a clinical trial involving 340 Chinese patients, and the results are that Avigan is turning people negative for the virus after a median of just 4 days, compared with a median of 11 days for people who did not get the drug. We've heard it can take weeks for the body to fight this naturally. Median seems to be 11 days. That means half take less than 11 days, half take more than 11 days. Avigan reduces the median to 4 days. Lungs, x-rays of the lungs improved within 4 days in 91% of the people taking Avigan, compared with just 62% sort of fighting the virus naturally, without assistance, so to speak. The results also say the safety of the drug in terms of side effects seems high. That's been a concern with Avigan. Still need more information there. So that's all the good news. The thing to keep in mind about the Avigan trial so far is that they seem to really only work well for people with mild to moderate cases. If you have a case where it's more serious and the virus is already well established, the Avigan does not seem to work particularly well. So this could possibly be approved as a coronavirus treatment by May, and that's very interesting. Second, and this is even more exciting in my mind, I told you about the French biologist and medical doctor. In other words, he's an MD and a biology PhD, Didier Rao. And he's been doing some very good small trials. He has now published very good results from a trial about chloroquine. I mentioned chloroquine as a possible treatment. Chloroquine is a really old, cheap anti-malaria drug. It's been around since 1934. It's very inexpensive, and it has shown some promise in treating the virus. Dr. Rao found in a small trial that a 600 milligram per day dose of hydroxychloroquine, which is a version of the drug, reduced the viral load in swab tests significantly. That's great by itself. But now it's getting even more interesting. Dr. Rao did an additional test combining the hydroxychloroquine dose with azithromycin. Now, if azithromycin sounds familiar to you, that's an antibiotic widely available, sold under the sort of marketing name of Zithromax. I took it years ago for a sinus infection. It's very commonly taken for a number of different bacterial infections. Combining azithromycin with chloroquine in Dr. Rao's study seems to be even better. Now, I know what you're going to say. Well, hold on, David. This is a virus, not a bacteria. Antibiotics work on bacteria. Why on earth would azithromycin help? Azithromycin, despite being an antibiotic, has been shown in a number of peer-reviewed studies, Google it, they're widely available, to have antiviral effects specifically on bronchial cells in COPD patients. COPD, of course, a respiratory illness. So there's something about azithromycin that has a mechanism that works specifically in the lungs. This is very interesting. And again, all of this warrants more study. But the chloroquine treatment modalities are being tested in more and more places. There are calls now that Seattle doctors should start testing this protocol. They have a large cluster of cases. It would provide for some good data. but it could also maybe help a lot of the patients in that Seattle cluster. So all very interesting. Lastly, we're now learning about possible sort of genetic or underlying markers that might make people more or less susceptible to the disease. It appears, this is again, this is early, blood type might be a factor. There's a non-peer-reviewed study from Chinese researchers on 2,100 patients, large sample size, and the idea that they've found is that if you have blood type A, you might be at higher risk for COVID-19 compared to all other blood types. And blood type O has lower risk for COVID-19. It's not all or nothing. It's a spectrum. It's not been peer reviewed, but this is the type of thing that we're looking at. The next question is, if you confirm the blood type stuff, would it allow us to modify or tailor treatment on the basis of blood type in some efficacious way? This is all hypothetical at this point. So there's very bad news every day about the number of cases and the real spread of the infection. We're also getting good news every day, and we're learning something new, getting a little bit closer. We just need to keep staying away from each other while doctors, medicine, and science do their work. Let me know what you think about this latest news. I'm on Twitter at @dpakman. The show is on Twitter at David Pakman Show. Privacy.com is one of our sponsors, and they're giving you $5 just for using their free service at privacy.com/Pakman. Privacy is a service I've been using for a while now. I love it. It saves me a bunch of headaches. It's completely free, and it's very quick to set up. And here's how it works. When you pay for something online or over the phone, instead of exposing your real credit card number, Privacy lets you generate virtual card numbers. The payments are withdrawn from your checking account, but your real card number stays completely private, and you do it all with one click. You can autofill the card number in your web browser, on the phone. You can create 12 virtual cards a month. You can set spending limits, freeze them, delete them whenever you want. I especially love it for free trials where you need to give a credit card number, because I can destroy the virtual card number as soon as I give it to the company, and I know I won't be charged in the future. If you're ordering food over the phone, why do I need to give a restaurant my real card number if I don't have to? Companies don't have to know who you are. Your real credit card number is protected from the data breaches that happen, unfortunately, more often than we would like, and it's completely free. They do have a paid version with different tiers where you can create more virtual credit card numbers per month, cashback rewards, extra security features. But go ahead and sign up for the free service. It's a no-brainer. Companies can't charge you unexpectedly. You're protected from identity theft. It costs you nothing. And Privacy is giving you $5 to spend just for signing up when you go to privacy.com/Pakman.